Joanna Simpson here at Quant Minds International in London. Joining me now is Alex Morris, Vice President of Quants at Selby Jennings. Thank you very much for joining me today.
No worries at all, Joanna.
What have been the biggest trends of the year so far in quant finance?
It's been an interesting year, and to say the least. I think what we've seen are probably, firstly, two sides when you compare the sell side and buy side from, I guess, a performance and also, I'd say additionally, a hiring perspective. I'd say to start off with the sell side, as you probably saw, some big players like Credit Suisse, for example. I think what happened with them, the knock-on effect was huge. Whether that was just to growth plans, whether that was to cost-cutting initiatives, whether that was to just in general confidence throughout the industry. And as a result, I think what we saw was a lot of reprioritization of projects. I think we saw some cuts earlier in the industry, and I think conversations around hiring managers are expecting things to get better next year, and hopefully we will see that as a result. But I think on the other hand, working with a number of the prop shops and hedge funds that, to be honest, I think had a really, really strong year in 2022, look to capitalise on them. So we saw hedge funds take on huge amounts of AUMs, which I think the natural next step for them was to diversify, to branch out into new areas of frequencies or new strategies entirely. And I think for them what they became very, very good at was identifying areas of the market to which there was market share there to take quickly. And as a result, I think that agility probably made them have much stronger years in comparison. Thirdly is probably data, and that leads obviously onto machine learning and AI, which is probably the biggest buzzword you will see at Quant Minds over the course of the week. And I think it is really the attitude towards data and how we store it and how we manage it, and additionally what we can do with it going forward that has changed. And all of these sort of utilizations of machine learning tools, I think are going to be a huge focus going into next year as well.
And which areas within quant finance do you think will see the most exponential growth in the near future?
I'd say, firstly, that piece of diversification again. So again, these companies, they're getting very, very good at identifying new areas to reach into, whether that is new frequencies to trade in, new strategies entirely, whether that is even just new asset classes to branch into. I think they're becoming much better also at identifying the right individuals to do this. No easy challenge by any means, but I'd say from our buy-side clients, that's probably the case. I'd say secondly, again, going on to that AI and machine learning piece. It's a different question entirely, however, of how this is governed, because I think a lot of the conversations this week have been really interesting uses, whether that is in pricing derivatives, in automated BAU, whether that is also using in trade strategies. But the question really, I think, is how these are governed, because there's still an element of human overlay that you need to have to this. And that's, I think, what everyone's trying to wrap their heads around in the next year or so. I think thirdly, data as well, and the way in which we use data sets. And there's been an ever-increasing demand, I think, for alternative data and how that is used. And that obviously brings us onto new strategies and that diversification piece, really, that we were talking about previously.
So what areas do you think will be the most challenging in the coming years?
Okay, challenging. I'd say twofold. So firstly, we've got the issue around the increasing regulation that's going to be a knock-on effect of players like Credit Suisse, for example, and what happened there. So you've already seen some examples of this in the Basel III, new regulations around endgame, for example. That's going to bring a lot of regulatory and modelling challenges. And as a result, similar things to what we saw with FRTB and LIBOR, it's a huge amount of resources needed, a huge amount of manpower, and a huge amount, I think, of financial support as well for all of these new models. So there's a deadline of 2025 set for this. It's a tough deadline, and I think it's going to provide a bit of headache, I think, for a lot of managers as to how to get this done on time. But I think the general consensus at the moment is, unless they're able to get the additional headcount required for these projects, it's going to be quite challenging. Secondly, and again to bring on to that diversification piece of earlier, it's the competition for alpha in certain markets at the moment is getting more and more so by the month, right? And I think what's going to be increasingly challenging is finding the individuals to actually bring this to these firms and hedge funds and prop shops. And I think what's more difficult now is that there are increasing ways that hedge funds are trying to retain their staff around really long non-compete periods, for example, or around huge counter offers that we're seeing. And I think you've got these increasing demand factors of more funds looking to branch into selective areas, coupled with the fact that it's much trickier to pry people away that are very well looked after. So that's probably the two biggest, I'd say.
And you've touched upon it there, but how do you feel businesses can attract and retain talent in the current quants market?
So two factors, obviously, that I just mentioned were longer non-compete periods. The trick with that, however, is you obviously find it much harder to attract people because they're put off by non-compete periods of above 12 months. Secondly, comp is always in the quant space, and most financial services is a really easy way to retain people and bring them on board. I think what a lot of hedge funds and prop shops and even investment banks have done very well is offering guarantees. That extra bit of security, of course, is everything for a lot of people. I'd say other initiatives that are probably only prominent in the last couple of years or so, are really at the forefront, are probably flexibility, as you will have seen in all industries, but particularly more difficult in financial services, I think. Better flexibility of working from home arrangements, for example, or better flexibility of whether you are able to work remotely for a month, a year. That, I think, is everything for employers at the moment, to be able to offer that, and it's quite tricky, I think, to compete with other industries such as tech, for example, if you're not able to offer this. But I'd say probably finally is to lean on your recruitment partners, because realistically all employees are different, right? Their priorities are all in different order, and lean on your recruitment partners to tell you, I guess, what's most important to candidates, I guess how the market perceives you as an employer already, and I think finally in the different areas that are compelling for different candidates as well, because as all individuals are different, naturally it's going to be difficult to attract different types of people with the one-size-fits-all policy.
Alex, that was very interesting things there. So Alex Morris, thank you very much for joining me.
Brilliant, thanks so much.